Hello everybody and welcome to another video here on the channel. So I know it's been a couple months since my last video, and part of the reason for that is I don't really like talking about stuff unless I'm really passionate about it. I think I said that in another video of mine. And one thing that's been coming up lately in the tech sphere is the fact that a lot of people is switching to Linux. And I know what that is like because I have switched to Linux myself. Now before I begin, I would like to admit that I am still using Windows on my main gaming PC. However, I have switched to Arch Linux on my laptop and I do have a Steam Deck. So I am very familiar with the operating system. I switched last year around October and I have been using it for almost about a year now. So I am experienced with Arch Linux enough to where I do think I have a valid opinion on it. So let's get into my reasons why I did switch to Linux. Now the first one is quite obvious. I think most people, this was the pushing force behind it. But with the end of support for Windows 10, you will have to go to Windows 11 at the end of October of this year. And I am on Windows 11 right now. But I did have to do a couple workarounds to get it on my computer. I had to use something called Rufus to get it to be able to install on my computer. I also had to go through a whole bunch of install scripts just to get it to what I wanted it to be. And that's the main reason why a lot of people don't like Windows 11. It's heavily bloated, and just to get it like Windows 10, you're going to have to get like a third-party software. I personally use Explorer Patcher because before I even installed it, I couldn't even remove the location of the taskbar the way I wanted it to. And that seems like a very basic feature that they shouldn't have even messed with, but they got rid of it for whatever reason. I could also talk about the privacy implications of Microsoft Recall, but I want to go into that in a little bit later, so I'm not going to really dive too much into it. But long story short, Windows 11 is just god awful. I mean, I know it's basically just a reskin of Windows 10, but it is just awful, and that's what gave me the final push to move on to Linux. Now, here is another big reason on why I switched. If I would tell you right now, which console would you prefer? Would it be a Switch 2 or a Steam Deck? A lot of people would probably say the Steam Deck. Now, I know the Switch is newer and it's going to have a whole bunch of first-party games that's a lot of people are going to have. But I think really one of the major reasons why people don't like the Switch 2 isn't for the price, but it's the philosophy of how people want to use the technology and the hardware that they bought. With Nintendo's bricking people's consoles for realistically minor reasons, and the fact that games are going up in prices and you have to pay online and be part of their controlled ecosystem, it really is one of the driving forces of why people aren't just excited about the Switch 2. And I think the reason why a lot of people is comparing it to the Steam Deck is because you really don't have this many problems with the Steam Deck. You can sideload your games. You can get games from multiple different sources. The Steam Deck can't be bricked like the Switch 2 because there is no server it has to connect to access the hardware. Yes, there is Steam, but it doesn't lock down the whole system if you do something that Valve doesn't like. But Valve seems to be a lot more lenient anyway. And that goes with the desktop version of Arch. I have Arch on my laptop, and it's not like a Mac. With a Mac, you have to have an Apple account to use a lot of their services, to use Find My Device and all that. You need an account to download apps. With Linux, you really don't need it. You can set up Flatpaks fairly easily, and for most people who don't want to deal with the command line, you have basically an app store. And the beauty with the app store is you don't have to sign into it. You can have multiple different repos, which is basically centralized service to get these apps. You don't have to deal with the moderation as much, and most of the apps is open source. Now, that's another topic I'm going to get into later, but it's just the philosophy of how you use your devices that you pay your money for is the reason why people use Linux. They like the openness. They like the fact that they can basically do whatever they want with the hardware that they bought. Now, the last reason I have is a fairly simple one. And in fact, you really don't need to switch to Linux to actually implement this in your daily life. But Linux supports and encourages free and open source software. Now, what free software means necessarily doesn't mean the fact that it isn't free. Most of it is, but the philosophy behind that is that the code is available for people to see. So it is audited by a community of people who just like software, and that's very good for privacy and security reasons. You know, it's not as good as Adobe, but I personally started using Kdenlive, which I used to use Sony Vegas, which was glitchy and it did crash all the time, but I used Sony Vegas 15 since 2016, and I can sit there and say that Kdenlive is a lot more stable and it doesn't have telemetry, so I know everything I do with Kdenlive stays with me and there's no nefarious purpose behind it. And it's not just that. Most software I use, like Brave browser, is free as open source, and all of this is available for Windows too. So if you want to have, you know, your anti-cheat games and the choice to have open source software, you can do that. But I think if you go that route, eventually you're gonna want your whole operating system to have that free and open sourceness and that community driven backing behind it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I think that with the rise of forced AI in these operating systems, that the Linux desktop is going to increase. I know a lot of people like using AI, but these forced integrations into your operating system, I haven't personally heard anybody using Microsoft Copilot because they wanted it to. Because they really just liked what Copilot offered and they wanted to use it. Most people use ChatGPT, which is also owned by Microsoft, but most people just use it in their web browser or download the app on their phone. They're not using the knockoff, ripoff built into Windows. So I don't know why they even have it. It's not needed. Nobody really asked for it. And personally, I think they should just give you the option to completely remove it from your system. But Microsoft wants to force this. So yeah, that's basically just my opinion on Linux. I think it's a great thing that most people should try once in their life. I know PewDiePie made a video on it. I know a lot of other people made a video on it. I could have done it about 2 months ago and probably gotten way more views. But you know, that's part of the reason why I'm a failed YouTuber. I don't really try to hop on trends. I've been pondering making this for a while and I just decided to do it. Yeah, if you liked the video, please rate it, if that's even a thing, but I'm so used to saying it. Comment your thoughts below. Do you use Linux? And if you do, what distribution do you use? And if you don't, tell me, do you see a problem with how modern technology is? Or do you just go about your life and you really don't think about it that much? Because most people probably have lives and not just looking at tech like I am. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video.